Things had been dark for the Israelites. You will remember, I'm sure all of you remember Charlton Heston and Moses and the great... Yeah. They were dark because Moses had been up on the mountaintop to receive the 10 Commandments from God. And while he was up there, the people decided that they were just going to make a golden calf and worship another god. And Aaron kind of veered them, and God's upset. Moses comes down, throws the covenant down, breaks the covenant. It's over and done, and God says, I'm going to give up on them. Well, God relents. And so Moses is up there for the second time getting the new version. It was the same words, but the new version of the 10 Commandments. And while he was there, his face became brilliant and dazzling. And this confirmed, when Moses came down, his face is all brilliant and dazzling, confirmed maybe we need to listen to Moses. And maybe he's got something straight from God. And maybe we don't want to go back to any of the golden calves. Things had been dark for Jesus and his companions. Chapter after chapter, event after event, thousands of people are gathering around. They're so glad to see him. And the apostles are gathered around, and they're getting measured for their, new suits of armor. They're going to go in and conquer. And then he says, now look, who do you say that I am? They say, well, you're the Messiah. And what they think is that he's going to be a king. And then he says, well, I'm going to go to Jerusalem and die. I'm going to be betrayed and I'm going to suffer. And if you trust me, you will follow me. And then Peter says, no, Jesus. No, you got the wrong plan. All right, and he rebukes Jesus and says, now, get back to the script, Jesus. Come in. Who do you think you are, Jesus? Then Jesus rebukes him, and it's silent. And they're beginning to wonder, do we really want to follow him? Because if we do follow him, it's going to cost us. So for about a week, no one speaks. And then Jesus takes James and John and Peter up to a holy mountain. And then they take a nap. And when they wake up, they see that Jesus is filled with light. And then they remember that Moses had been filled with light. And that light in Jesus, he's just dazzling, confirms for them that he really is the Son of God. And a voice comes from heaven and says, you're my son. And then the voice says, addressing them, listen to him. Which is exactly what they don't want to do. Listen to him. He is the one, and he's going to Jerusalem, and he's going to die for us, and this is his mission. You might not want to rebuke him anymore. Paul, in the second lesson, tries to translate what these two stories now mean for us right here. If you go to the second lesson, two-thirds of the way down, starting about three-quarters into the line, I'm beginning with the word and. And all of us, with unveiled faces, seeing the glory of the Lord, as though reflected in a mirror, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, the Spirit. What Paul is saying here is that what happened to Moses and Jesus can happen for us. That we can be transformed, and that we can be filled with light if indeed we look long enough and hard enough and faithfully enough and openly enough into the face of Jesus. And that just as Moses was transformed and Jesus was transformed, so we can be transformed if we look into his face. Now that begs a question. How do we see the face of Jesus? You're going to need to be able to move your heads, and you're going to need to be able to visualize. All right? Say if we're all at the door, don't be leaving. But say if we're all at the door, and I want you to see the face of Jesus in large proportions. You see the face. As you come forward a little bit, because you want to get near the face, right? Anybody besides me want to get near the face? Oh, where have you been? Oh, I'll never take a week off. All right. As you get close, you notice that it's not a picture that's all uniform. It's a mosaic. And you all know what a mosaic is. It's a picture. It looks like a picture from here, but as you get closer, it's made up of little bits and pieces of clay or rocks or some other kind of material. So as we move closer to the face of Jesus, we notice that it's a mosaic and that all the little pieces are faces. We can't distinguish the faces, but it's all made up of faces. And so what kind of faces? Black faces? Brown faces? Yellow faces? Which ones am I missing? Well, green, hello. And white faces. All the faces. For all of God's children. Now, as we ponder that all, who said green? Huh? As we ponder that, we're meant to see that we're called to look at the world differently. And if indeed all those colors of all God's children are all together, it says to us, needs to say to us, must say to us, that all racism goes. All racism desecrates the face of Jesus. Also says that all prejudices, they need to go. And also says to us, any desire that we have to differentiate ourselves from any other face in the face of Jesus is wrong, sinful, and dangerous. We move a little closer. And then we begin to distinguish faces. Now, most of the faces we do not know. But then we notice some of the faces that we do know, and we think, oh, there's Fred, there's Geraldine, there's Gladys. And we love them, and we're so glad that they're embedded in the face of Jesus. Of course they're there. And some of those faces have gone before. And then we look around, and then we see, Greg is there. And Annie is there. And we see faces of people who abused us. Or who lied about us. Or who betrayed us. And what we'd really like to do, some of us, we'd really like to get a chisel and chisel them out. You don't believe, no, I can't bear to see you in the face of Jesus. You don't deserve to be in the face of Jesus. If Jesus only knew all that you had done. And of course he does know. And as we're trying to chisel it out, we can't, because the face doesn't belong to us, it belongs to him. And then we realize that there's a glue there called grace. Now, in time, we will come to understand that whatever happened between us and whoever will be healed. It will be reconciled. We move a little closer, and now we're looking for one face. I'm sorry? Ours. We're looking for our face. And then we see our face embedded in the face of Jesus. And we're glad, we're grateful. And then we begin to think, oh, I wish I could have put on a prettier face than that. And many of us, when we look in the mirror, we can't believe, especially over time, what happens. Could my 22-year-old face have been included? Because we happen to see our blemishes or our wrinkles or our bags under our eyes or the ravages of time. But as we look at the face, we look at our face, we come to realize that all the faces, because they're embedded in the face of Jesus, are holy and sacred and beautiful. So then we decide to not get any closer, but to get far away again, so that we can see the whole face. So as we see the whole face of Jesus, what do we see? For 40 plus years, I have been trying to help people see the face of Jesus. And what I hear often, not always, but often, is simply appalling. Because some of you, or many of the people I've talked to, listened to, what they see in the face of Jesus is anger. Or they see disappointment. If only you could have done this, and if only you hadn't done that. And I feel like I'm trying to deconstruct 40 years of really awful preaching. Yeah, I guess I won't be done in this lifetime. But think about it. If Jesus wanted us to see the face of God as being angry and God's always disappointed, that makes God a sadist. What Jesus wants us to see in his face is love. And if you're worried about earning it, you can't. If you're worried about losing it, you can't. And Jesus is not looking at us with the list of our infractions. He wants us to see his grace, which covers all the infractions. And if anybody is going to be afraid, he wants us to know that he wants to put his arms around us. He wants us to see hope, courage, and blessing. That's what Jesus wants you to see in his face. When Moses was filled with light, it confirmed for the Jews that he was God's person and that they needed to listen. That light confirmed who he was and what he was about. Same for Jesus. The light in him confirmed that he was God's son and that they were all on their way to Jerusalem together. When we begin to see all the faces, all of our faces embedded in his face, and his face embedded in ours, we'll be transformed. And Jesus not only wants to change our minds and our hearts and our souls, he wants to change our faces. Because our faces filled with some light will confirm who we are. And I got to tell you, having looked at God's people for a few years now, there's way too much. And all those looks of disapproval, and it all needs to go. Tightness, fear. Has the face of Jesus made any difference to this congregation? You now have a new nickname. We're the Church of the Transfiguration. Don't anybody take that literally. Don't anybody get hives. Everybody relax. But if you think about what's happened, what is happening, and what I see is the light and joy of the Lord. From one degree to another. Amen.